Well, hi there. Welcome. I'm Jeff Mader. I'm the host here of Tuesdays 9 at 9:09. Not to be confused with the one after 9:09. But I digress. We're talking about the first episode, guys, of season 3. We're finally here into good Tuesdays 9. Which part 1 and part 2. We're covering it both here. We're breaking it down. It's been over since.
I love this start. It's great.
Okay, well, just like taking over. I'm Dave Mader.
Slide him on it.
Yeah, I'm sliding on in here, Jeff, to help you out and talk about season 3, Deep Space Nine and 9.
I know you're excited.
I'm excited. New uniforms.
New uniforms, new com badges. People are more confident. It's very exciting.
That's right.
We are also going to bring in one half of the tag team couple, Millard.
This is like when one of the Bushwhackers was in the Royal Rumble. Is this like kind of like?
Yes, that's exactly. Or one of the. Yeah, exactly.
Can you name both?
It's like this is when Marty Jannetty went solo.
Is that what it? Oh no,
yes, it's exactly like that.
Or is it more like with Shawn Michaels? We'll have to see. You know, who's the Marty?
Ashley's the Shawn Michaels.
She's the Shawn Michaels. She's the HBK. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And definitely. And finally, we will bring in our final guest. He hasn't joined us in a few episodes, I think. Was he in the last one? I don't remember.
Was that
Jaemeel Robinson.
I think he was there, Jeff.
It was the ones before.
The last
one, no. He was there.
He had a catastrophic failure of his computer last week.
True.
That's right. Thank you, Kevin, for he didn't have O'Brien there. And now we can't say, do you see Jaemeel, Dave? Because I don't see Jaemeel.
I see him.
I do.
I do not.
Refresh,
Weird.
Jeff. I think
Might
you
be
need
a
to
little bit
refresh.
too dark in here.
I didn't think it was me.
Should have ordered the white one.
All right. So Kevin, since you're now in that top spot, you have. Oh, there's Jeff. Okay. But now you.
I'm in the bottom. That's fine. I'm okay with the bottom corner because we're here talking about the search. Okay,
oh my God, Jeff, you're like in the submarine or something. What's going on with your microphone?
What? Oh, that's right. Oh, my microphone goes to the camera. One second.
Okay, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
That's much better.
Okay. Yeah, that's my camera.
Night and
microphone.
day. I would say
It was
very bad.
Is it
Very.
It's pretty bad.
It's
Well, good to know they built them good on the Nexigo cameras. All I heard in the reviews on Amazon there, Jaemeel, was just good.
I have no understanding
good
of
microphone.
why you're asking me about anything.
Oh, I just was. You were the newest person into the chat. I was just
making conversation.
Just conversation charter.
I do not formally have any ties to that organization that's on record.
He owns no stocks.
Okay. No stock, no affiliation whatsoever. Okay, so I'm going to give my quick analysis of both these episodes. As
Jeff,
far
got
as,
a question
my
to
first
start
takes.
off the tonight already.
Oh, we have a question already? What's the question?
Before we even dive into the I think we have to hit the questions.
Okay, what's the
Because
question?
we have one. Will Avery Brooks come back as Cisco like Patrick Stewart did? Survey says
No.
Yes, the
I
Hawk
don't think
will
so.
come back.
I want the Hawk to come back, but I just think
I would say never say never. I don't think it's impossible, but I think
it's not impossible.
Unlikely.
Very unlikely. I think.
Which show?
These two episodes tonight reminded me how important Odo is to the Deep Space Nine universe, and without bringing him back in some way, I think as well. I mean, you don't need to, but I just think the cast is kind of incomplete to bring Cisco back. They could do it, but Cisco's, we haven't even got to season 7 yet. But to get him to come back, I think would be.
I think with the death of Rene Auberjonois and with Aaron Eisenberg as well, and just the fact that Avery Brooks is not really in the acting game anymore, I just don't think you'll ever see that crew reunited quite like in the way like the Next Gen crew did or the original series got to, like go to the movies or have some sort of other thing. I think you're more likely will see them, like kind of like Seven of Nine, Jerry Ryan, end up in things like Picard. I think you're going to see those characters again, some of them.
Yeah,
but
you could maybe see Akira. You know,
I think you could see Bashir come along. I think a lot of these characters could come back, even Cisco. But to come back as a crew, to come back as the Deep Space Niners, when like you can't bring back Terry Farrell, and so there's that too. Not that she wasn't there till the end anyway, but it's just I don't know. It's kind of a weird. It's
outside of anyone who's dead, anyone could come back. If there's money involved, money on the table that they see that they can make, they're like, well, we slipped through this black hole and we're in this pocket, time travel dimension business, and oh look, it's this specific group of people at this specific time, and everyone's alive that you wanted to make money off of. That's the great news about television.
I think if Avery Brooks was to come back, it would be like Dave was saying. It would be an episode of some other show. Like it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna bring him back, it's more likely to be like a one-off project, like a movie or something that's
or an episode of Picard.
But you're right. If they threw enough money at Avery Brooks, I'm sure he would do whatever they and a lot of these actors would come back if it was lucrative. But I'm not so sure.
I don't even think it's money. I think if they just let him do some jazz, he'd come back.
He's like, as long as they get to play piano.
They could, like, a cool idea would be like to do a Deep Space Nine movie, and like because then you could just like have like they need to bring Cisco back from the dead through the prophets or something to solve some sort of problem, and that would be a good movie or something.
He's not dead,
you know.
Spoilers, but his character's not dead. Like he just went off into the whatever. We're gonna talk about that in a couple of years when we get to the finale. Where's Cisco's ultimate fate?
I say two things: either Lower Decks or Discovery.
Yeah, more likely Lower Decks, I think, where he could just do a voice.
Yeah,
I think play piano for like the entire episode in the background.
Yeah,
I want to know what the hell is going on.
That was tonight. That was in this. I want to know what the hell is going on. I want to know what my Chief O'Brien's been beat to a pulp. The Gemini who did it is walking free. How'd this happen? Is Jeff frozen again?
Planting some seeds about how
looks like it.
Some characters who are later on in this this season, how grimy they are in actual real life. Just saying.
Can you elaborate? I'm not sure what you mean.
Eddington.
Eddington.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for Jeff to reconnect. Okay. There's so much to talk about, guys, in this two-parter. A very interesting way to start the season. Oh, wait. There's Jeff. He's back. There's two windows open, Jeff. Okay. There you go.
I don't know why I did that.
And your microphone is...
microphone.
And every time I'm about to take charge here, he's back.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know why it automatically goes to your camera every time, but you can't change that. Apparently, because
you can. You can change a default. You can change default cameras and microphones.
Where?
Well, in your system.
Well, we could have that.
We'll figure it out later.
After
we have that talk later.
After our. We're really going off the rails here. We're going to talk about the search. Okay, let's talk about this. The opening scene of this episode is so good. Everything is introduced so quickly, but so well. Basically, he's talking about the whole reason for the Defiant, that they created it to go against the Borg. It's so powerful that it almost
that's not the opening
blew
scene.
The ship apart. That's pretty much the opening scene. Is
the opening scene is where they decloak, right? And
it's this whole
it's smirk at the end.
It's Kira talking to basically to O'Brien, Bashir, and Dax about how we've ran the scenarios. If the Dominion attacks, we're done. We're overwhelmed in 2 hours. O'Brien's like, that's ambitious. But Jeff, right off the bat, you're whammed in the face with what? New comm badges.
And that's really the most important thing. And a new hairdo for Dax.
I knew Dax in this hairdo is something else. It is distracting in this episode.
So, like, what do you want to give her the Janeway just to see like if it'll look good on Janeway? And then I think that's
this
what happened.
This is the craziest I think Dax's hair ever looks in this entire show. I don't even know how much into season 3 we're going to be dealing with this, but I don't even have a photo of it.
It is kind of ridiculous that it's like you're in the 3rd season and you're like, this hair still isn't working. Like,
it's like her hair. Like, you can see it here. This is this opening scene where and Odo's also present, not really doing much.
He's just shaking his head,
shaking his head and kind of.
Well, nobody's getting shot, so he's got no one to stand beside.
Yeah, but I talked about those comm badges, and we talked about Dax's new hairdo. But Jeff, what about that collar on Odo and the belt?
I don't care. Really, I mean, the Bajoran
uniform watch.
The Bajoran uniforms really are just kind of ugly in general. So they kind of look like they're wearing like.
Odo's got the nicest one.
Odo has the nicest one.
Yeah.
No, Kira's is pretty good, but...
In all fairness, I think that this isn't the A costume or uniform. Sorry, this is the B uniform because typically it's a lot more form-fitting on Nana Vista, and this is looking like she's wearing pajamas. Right? This looks extremely unflattering. This is the B costume. The other one's in the cleaners.
Possibly.
Look at
Wait,
it.
Who's the B costume? Where are you going? What are you saying?
I'm saying that costume is the B costume. Like they have different, costumes. They have the A1, and then they probably have the B1 for like wide shots where it's at a distance. This is extremely unflattering. Typically, it's a lot more form-fitting. This is the B costume.
So the one that Nana Visitor gets later on, the one that doesn't have like these weird shoulder things, it just looks like that red kind of one piece. That looked the best on her. She has that kind of from season 5 on, basically, except for the time she wore the Starfleet uniform. But yes, but like but I think it's important because I feel like the show. This is like the show starting to become its own thing, right? This is its first season fully without Next Gen in its shadow. Voyager won't start for another 6 months. So this is kind of that we're in this era of Deep Space Nine where they're the only Star Trek show on TV. And so little things like costume changes, I think, and even hair changes, I think have some significance.
They're on Dave Watch, is what you're saying. Dave Watch. He breaks down all the hairdos and accessories and uniforms. Dave Watch.
Whether you want him to or not.
Whether you want it or not, he's coming.
Well, yeah.
Does O'Brien have a funkier accent? Dave talk. He's here.
Well, beyond just beyond just uniforms and hairdos and whatever, we also have a new ship, a new set, the Defiant.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Jeff, we have the Defiant now, too.
Yes, and Sisko shows up. He's like, I have a surprise for the Defiant. And he's very impressed with himself. He gives a little smirk to Kira.
Well, what's your reaction to this? A Federation ship with a cloaking device. How cool.
Oh, I guess. Yes, it was very cool at the time. I'm sure it was. It's funny that we have Seska playing the Romulan. That's fun.
Yes, Martha Hackett in the role of what's her name? Taru or something? This character?
Tarul.
Subcommander, whatever. I had a feeling like they were going to try to make her like a recurring character, like she was going to be a permanent Romulan crew member or something.
They clearly liked the actress and they used her again. I was like, I know the actress. I had to look it up. I was like, I know who that is. I'm like, why do I know?
I didn't find out till this week that this is Seska from Voyager as well, Martha Hackett. And she's great. Like she's got one of those voices, and she knows how to play the Star Trek role. And she even having a Romulan member on your bridge crew that we see in this 2-parter is kind of really neat. Like seeing how that, and also a Bajoran officer, so an integrated crew.
Right. Okay, so the opening scene that I was talking about after the credits, where Sisko's breaking down what the Defiant is, why it was built. and we get a lot of different moments too, where we get Eddington walk in, and we get the Seska to rule walk in, and we just get the disgruntled Odo.
I like disgruntled Odo. I enjoyed that.
This whole scene I love, like everything about it, like especially like when like Odo figures out what's going on, and then like Sisko's like, okay, everybody dismiss, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he's like,
the real meeting's happening at 1800 hours. This was just the prelude to the actual real meeting.
well, Jeff, you yada over Eddington. What about Eddington?
Well, yeah, Eddington walks in. That's what I was talking about. Eddington walks in, and my favorite part was like, Odo's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And then he like, that's when Sisko kind of says him. He didn't even answer him. He just walks out. That's my favorite part. He's just like, "All right."
He's like, "What's your role here?" He's like, "I'm Starfleet security." He's like, "Mm-hmm."
Yeah. He's like, "I'm head of security for the station."
I have a question for Kevin, because when Eddington was introduced, because we had talked about this last time, that you were watching the show at the time, but I was not. And maybe Jaemeel was. Sorry, but what did you think of Eddington when he came in? Did you think he would be a?
I never would have thought he would have been a main character. He is awful, just awful.
Yes. Cannon fodder. I thought he was.
He's Canadian.
Yeah.
He's kind of like if Chandler was a Starfleet officer, like that's kind of what he's like, He's just kind of always giving like a wink and a nod. He's kind of got a sarcastic comment to say about almost everything, and he's really not doing his job.
He's 90s everyman, he's
he's a 90s everyman. He literally could have walked over and done the Friends or Seinfeld and
on any
he really should have just been this episode. Like,
he should have just died in this episode.
You don't like the whole Eddington storyline? You don't like him in it?
Javert?
Oh my god, I can't believe I'm gonna have to listen to him say Javert 300 fucking times again.
So yeah, Kevin's not a fan of this character.
I am not.
It's not a good character,
I love this character.
I think great. What this episode is doing so well is setting up a whole bunch of different storylines all within one episode, right, Dave?
Well, I think so, right? Because we get the Romulan character, and we get there's so much going on in this two-parter. It's jam-packed, although I think from a rewatch standpoint, it's kind of like it's a bit of a mess. But it's also like we're reinventing the show. We're throwing the Defiant at you. We got a Romulan character. Who's this new Starfleet officer character? What's he going to be about? And obviously, like the big reveal with Odo, and he's finally found what his species is,
and we know what the Dominion is by the end.
Dominion, which is the obviously the big thing. But there's
what gets buried is sassy Bashir.
Yes,
sassy.
He's channeling his inner bones and complaining about sickbay the whole time.
Yes,
he insults Quark and then
that's
just
the
goes,
best line.
Yeah,
and
I insulted you.
That was the best line.
I should be named the White Kevin. Who's the White Kevin?
When that line he throws at Quark is awesome.
KK, man, KK.
And the whole scene that we get with Quark and Sisko with the Negus stick, and he's like, "Aren't you forgetting something?" And he gets him to come kiss it, and just there's so many fun moments in this episode. In the first half, I thought the first half was superior to the second half. I don't know about you.
Look at this shot. Look at Sisko.
What a smug ass face.
How smug? This is Sisko easily at his smuggest.
He could have just replicated that, couldn't he?
I don't know. Like they were trying to give I think this is the end of anything great between Sisko and Quark, because I don't remember them having any great moments after this episode. Really,
Quark didn't trust him anymore. He found out that was a fake, and he got
yeah. But they do try to have a number of crossovers. Jeff, you're right. Like they have, obviously Odo. There's Odo and Sisko, but there's also Odo and Kira. There's Sisko and there's Quark and Odo in parts of this. There's Dax and Sisko.
Yeah. They have a Jake Sisko scene.
Jake, he wants some of that pudding, that spice pudding.
Yeah, and he keeps ordering it. And
every replicator. You can't get a decent bowl on Earth of that spice pudding.
And his dad, has 2,000-year-old African art.
Yeah, we got the art collection out, and so it's home now, which I think is significant, because I feel like them saying this is home now. and we always talked about how this show found its wind in this third season. So maybe it's also about the writers feeling at home, because most, like, especially Ira Stephen Bear, who wrote this, he was a next gen writer who came over here. So
I think in the documentary or whatever, What We Left Behind, I think they say that they put that line in on purpose because in season 3 they finally kind of like didn't have the oversight that they had in the first 2 seasons, and it shows. You can see it right away in this episode.
Right away, yeah.
Well, what kind of oversight? Like, is just the shadow of being next to Next Gen, this massive hit show?
Yep, and I think a lot of the good writers that were on Next Gen came over to Deep Space Nine, and then I also think there was less oversight from people like Rick Berman, and I think they were too busy making Voyager. You know, they were already in the production of making a whole other show. That's going to consume a lot of your time, and that's going to give all these writers somewhere to play, and that's what we get here.
Yeah,
in Deep Space Nine.
They can't worry so much about what they're doing, right?
So, Jeff,
no.
Do you think at a certain point, because all of that energy was directed towards Voyager, they thought Deep Space Nine was going to be what it is, and they're like, hey, we're going to have this, Voyager show that's going to be a lot more adventure, a lot more closer to original series Next Gen in terms of like episode to episode, as opposed to this like overarching storylines. And because they had so much hopes of Voyager, all that energy and focus was put over there, and people were able to kind of relax into their roles with Deep Space Nine and kind of do what they wanted.
Is he frozen, or is he thinking?
I think he's deep in thought. It was a very well structured question.
It was a good question. Oh man. Jaemeel, can you ask that again, just so I'll answer the question.
Do you think they put so much energy into Voyager that because they thought Deep Space Nine, it is what it is. It's not gonna it's not gonna pull the numbers and bodies that TNG did. So let's pull our.
Well, I think that they might have been thinking to themselves, this space station project isn't paying off as well as we want it to. So we need Star Trek's about ships. Let's get a ship in space, exploring new planets. So Voyager, I feel like, yeah, they were kind of trying to get back to their roots, or whatever you want to say, back to basics maybe. And there was a lot of conflict because this episode obviously brings in the Defiant, which is a ship, right? And I like, they're in the documentary that What We Left Behind, they talked about how the Defiant, they didn't want Deep Space Nine to have a ship because Voyager was a ship, and they thought audiences wouldn't be able to distinguish this for some reason. 2 ships on the air at the same time? Who can keep track of these things?
Who's Iron Man? Who's War Machine? I can't tell the difference.
Yeah, like I only have room in my life for one spaceship crew. I can't. Is this another spaceship crew? Like, so it's kind of ridiculous. But I understand, like, you have to make the shows feel different a little bit, and so sets can do that, uniforms can do that. You can also have sorry, I lost my thought there. Just the look of the Defiant is so different than the look of Voyager or the Enterprise. All the ships really look unique. Like they look like they're related. I think the look of the Defiant is worth noting because they introduced this Defiant, and we barely really get to see the ship. We get to see the bridge quite a bit.
There's no sexy kind of, wow, the Defiant. They literally back away from the station. You see the lights turn on, and it already cuts away.
Well, I also wrote, like,
they do show the top light come on, which I thought was cool.
It was cool, but you feel like this new ship, you would get more like Star Trek motion picture, and you would see the ship like
no.
But we don't get any of that.
You thought you were gonna get more ship porn.
Well, just a little.
The editing booth is like, that's enough. That's enough.
Right? Like, well, I noted here that
me standing there going, less is more. Less is more. Just stop.
Like when they add the Defiant to the opening credits, which they don't do. I noted here that these credits don't have the Defiant. Like, how at a certain part it breaks off and then it goes into the wormhole instead of a dumb runabout. Not that Not that we don't like your runabout, Jeff, in your backdrop.
I also have the
It's
Defiant right there.
right. But you also have the Defiant. But like the Defiant, I love the Defiant. I love the idea of the Defiant, like that they have the base, but then they can get in this really awesome vehicle, kind of more like a Millennium Falcon or something a little bit more, sleek, sexy, a battleship. This was a very exciting time.
Or sexy.
What do you think about like Cisco as like the builder? Like he's kind of like known for like being like kind of an architect. And what do you think about that?
Right, because he helped design this ship, right? Like that's kind of a cool connection here. It's not like he was just given this thing. He helped kind of design it to fight the Borg, who just killed his wife. This is one of the only times we hear about the Borg again since the pilot.
Yeah, they never really bring it up much with Cisco because it's not his thing, because it was Picard's thing so much, right?
But it really kind of is, isn't it? It's kind of really Cisco's thing too. He has a connection to it, at least.
Yeah,
but it's not his thing. He doesn't discuss it much because it's too painful. So
right.
It's not really Borg stuff with him.
And he got Jennifer again repeatedly.
Yeah, it is brought up in this episode. Like Dax is like, I never saw you this excited since Jennifer died, or whatever. So that is.
No.
He's like,
you had to be the guy implementing the changes. Like that whole scene was, like with Cisco and Dax, where she's giving him the pep talk about what Curzon thought. Curzon always thought you could never be an admiral.
Yeah. I don't have any original thoughts of my own, but I'll tell you what Curzon thought.
I'll tell you what Curzon thought.
Yeah,
I don't really know.
Curzon was a man, so he knew.
My woman brain can't, give opinions that you would accept. So I'm just gonna tell you about the other one.
Yeah, you seem to be friends with him, and you and me so far, I'm not sure.
But Jeff, the Defiant, like its introduction here in the show, isn't it? It's huge.
It is very cool. It's a big. You know what? You're right, because like the stupid runabouts are kind of lame, and the last episode we watched really displayed that. And I think they were like, "Yeah, this is lame. We can't have like an Enterprise show up every now and again and have like runabouts with Kira and Dax and Bashir and like the
there's
Rio
a runabout with Bashir
but wait, they're loaded with photon torpedoes. Who cares? They're like this big.
They have like 2 photon torpedoes. Yeah, it's nothing.
It's not. Really.
But I like the idea of a ship that can fly itself apart. It's got so much power.
Yeah.
That it.
I feel like it's the motorcycle of the starships. Like it's like a huge engine, and everything else is just holding on for dear life.
Yeah, it's kind of like a motorcycle or something akin to that, right? Like it's just you're strapped to this big thing, and like what's amazing about this episode is like they get this brand new ship, and then they pretty much get their ass kicked the first time they take it into the Gamma Quadrant, right?
Brian never got a chance to put his hooks into it, though. To be fair.
Yeah.
They don't like go out there and kick ass, or they don't even have a successful battle. They get thumped right away.
How many ships did the Odyssey destroy?
I don't think they destroyed any.
None.
One for the Defiant.
Just themselves.
Oh yeah, and they destroyed one of the Jemadar ships, and guess who gets to do it? Bashir.
Of course.
Yeah, this is a new Bashir. Sassy Bashir.
Now,
he is sassy in this episode, and he's way more confident. I don't
know how much we can really credit this to Bashir, because I feel like Cisco just tells him implement Cisco pattern Sierra or whatever, and I think that's all Bashir actually did was do whatever Cisco pre-programmed.
He turned around and said, "I sir."
So what you're saying is
what a laugh!
What a laugh!
Cisco was on the controls, and Bashir was had the second controller that wasn't plugged in.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
There are some this whole first sequence when they go into the Gamma Quadrant, though, Dave, and they have the cloak on right when they get it there, and then that whole sequence kind of feels like almost like a U-571 submarine movie where they're they're stopping and they're turning their engines off and they're still wondering if they're being detected. And I don't know, I felt like it was very much a submarine-esque type. The whole cloak.
It's kind of cool because they're playing around with the fact that they have this cloaking device. And what does it mean for a Starfleet crew to have a cloaking device? And because normally Starfleet crews don't hide, but in this case they have to like show, well, we have the cloaking device because there's the danger. We're out where like there's just all these enemy ships in the Gamma Quadrant, so we have to sort of not be easily detectable. So it's kind of, I think it's a clever way to kind of introduce how this new ship and its unique abilities are going to be brought forth throughout the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And I think, yeah, like the Romulan idea to make it a cloaking chip makes sense. And there was a lot of work put into this season before we even saw this first episode. A lot of work, probably the 12th episode was already done before this episode was shot. They set up a lot of great things. They knew where they wanted to go. And that's what good shows do. And I don't think they knew where they were going yet for the first two seasons. I think they were kind of just treading water,
Cisco is unrecognizable in this episode compared to what we've been watching up until now, right?
Oh, man. Yeah, when he gets angry in this episode, he's like, I want to know what the hell is going on. And it's just that whole
right. He feels like the Cisco we know he will become, or he is now the Cisco that we're familiar with, sort of. He's not Captain Cisco yet, right? But he's much closer than he's ever been. It won't be till he gets the goatee and the bald head, and he's a man.
Full Hawk.
He's when he becomes full Hawk, he'll be like truly Cisco to me, right? Like he is Cisco, but he's like an earlier, younger version that's not reached his potential, I guess, is what he is.
I feel it's because you see the decisive attitude there. He's a lot more like clear cut in terms of his ideas and expressing them as opposed to kind of humming and hawing about it. Plus, he has a fresh cut that's really low, so it's just like
what is
from last season to this season?
Is this him like trying to inch up on the bald head, or is this just like his hairline is receding as well?
That's a fresh,
the reverse Jadzia.
They're like, let's take hair away from Cisco, give more to Jadzia.
Right. Well, I think it was like really empowering tonight too to see Cisco in a captain's chair, even though he's not a captain yet at this point. Commanding it, telling his officers all around him, like it's a big moment. I think
the big moment is when Dax and O'Brien go down to the planet, and then Cisco has to make the decision between trusting Bashir, who's mad because his friend and his love interest are on the planet together, and Seska is like, hey, we should like leave them to die because screw them.
Not Seska.
Well, it is Seska.
Romulan Seska. Okay.
It is Seska. You're wrong about that. She's just playing a different role. To
Seska was the role. Taru?
See why I said Seska? You understand what I meant.
I knew what you meant.
It's Taru, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Romulan Seska. Yeah.
Anyway, Cisco has to make that decision. And then I'm like, oh, well, he's going to help out Dax. And then he doesn't. He's like, no, turn around, get the hell out of here. and that's the moment where I'm like, oh, okay, Cisco is a captain. You make the hard decision. He doesn't care. Like he will do it. He will make the hard decision. Like Picard has had to do. We haven't really had enough of those moments with Cisco. Cisco's been dealing with a lot of stupid religious diplomats and ambassadors and admirals and, that's really what he's been doing for 2 seasons. We need him in a ship.
Maquis stuff. He he was barely in season 2. Like I still contend this. Yeah. His role in season 2 is so minimal. And like he's got a romance story with shadow play, and then he's got like the Maquis thing, and he mirrors Cisco has some moments, I think, but
Smiley. Your name is Smiley. Your name is Smiley.
I think they let him go on mirror Cisco and then went, oh, that was really good. Maybe we should put a little bit of that into Prime Cisco.
Well, I think they were like the first 2 seasons, like there are some great moments, but we know how good the show got in the third, like from here on. And I think that the 3rd season compared to even to the 4th season is inferior, but it's like now we got the momentum. Now we're starting to build some speed, some warp speed.
Okay. Yeah, that was a new low for Deep Space 99ish.
That's a new low.
And we've gotten pretty low on this show.
But Jeff, how did you feel when he said engage instead of having some catchphrase?
I did note that in my brain. I didn't write it down, but I did note it. I was like, "Oh, you know, copying Picard, are we? Okay, all right, I see you."
We talked about this. Like Janeway also just said engage. Like, and now it's like every captain has to have their own catchphrase now.
I like engage. I don't like punch it, bump it, whatever they say now.
Go warp time.
Go warp time. Whatever they say now, I do not like it.
That's my favorite. Go warp time.
Just say engage or execute or something like that.
Saru had what was Saru's like execute.
He tried a bunch of different ones.
Yeah,
be like,
that's the new joke in all the series is when they're trying to find out what they're gonna say.
I feel like until like Bruce Greenwood, Chris Pike came along in the 2009 movie where he was like punch it, which is like a Star Wars thing.
I hate that.
And I don't like the fact that Sulu pushes forward like an airplane friggin' handle to engage the warp drive. Well, that's the most dumbest thing I've ever seen.
That's no different than Tom Paris's like Captain Proton buttons or anything.
That's not on the bridge.
In the Delta Flyer.
Would you prefer a specific red button that said warp drive and he pushes it?
He says the red button.
I would just like hard he pushes it.
I like the way they have it, in the shows where
It's
they
a
just hit
little
a couple
practical.
buttons, and yeah.
Yeah, I never hated the lever, Jeff. Like it looks, but when I just thought
As if like they need to trip one switch to make the warp drive go. Like it's kind of silly. You have to.
I got more questions about this episode too, though, because we're seeing Sisko in this captain role, right? And he's got his officers around him, and I can't figure out between O'Brien and Kira and I know Dax is in the pilot station, but like who's doing what? And like who's like I can't figure out who's the science officer on that bridge. I can't figure out who's the ops officer. It just seems to be like, and this is throughout the whole show, that you have the captain and you have the pilot station, and then all these stations on the side of the bridge are sort of like they do whatever is needed, I guess, or they just.
But isn't that the case? It's literally a computer with like an interchangeable interface. It's like I'm working in this station today, so it's going to be the science station.
What is the
specifically?
Yeah.
What is the difference between the Defiant Bridge and the Enterprise Bridge? I mean, there's a hell
Well, I think what's the difference. What's the most significant difference to me is that the lack of like sort of a dedicated area to a specific function. So like on like the Voyager bridge, you have Tuvok station, right? And he's the security and tactical. So if there's any lines or dialogue that require him to like tell the captain what is happening that is in that category, he does that.
But doesn't Worf come on and have that station on the Defiant?
Well, no, not quite. It's like it's like that's the whole thing with the Defiant Bridge and the writing of the Deep Space Nine compared to the other shows. It's that it doesn't really make any sense. Like,
you know why I think
not a ship they're on all the time, so they don't have stations like they would on an Enterprise, because it's always different people on the ship too. Like it's never the same crew.
It's also a small crew. It's like
a small crew, but even like so it feels a little bit more like a shuttle in that way, where everybody's just kind of doing whatever they need to, I guess, is kind of the idea. Like you see lines that you would think like a tactical officer would relay to the captain would sometimes come from Kira, but sometimes they came from O'Brien, and sometimes they came from Dax. And so you're captain, like, okay.
Like Sisko is sleeping in a friggin' bunk bed in the, in
they got bunk beds here.
Like he doesn't have a captain's quarter. Like Janeway's got
window.
Janeway's got a tub with a window and some roses and some candles going, and Sisko's sleeping in a friggin' bunk.
This loft of a sick bay that I have.
What a loft.
The sick bay's a loft.
He's like,
the Defiant is also just supposed to be for short voyages and for fighting. It's not really
the Borg. It's not
exploration.
Why would they not put medical records on a ship that's going into war? You would
You
need
just got the ship. It's brand new.
You would need at least a half distance sick bay, wouldn't you?
It's in
yeah.
Factory settings still. They haven't even put like the date like a VCR. It still says 12.
The Sheer does say like some of the decks are inhabitable because of life support.
Yeah.
So the ship's not really up to speed yet. It's not fully operational.
No, because O'Brien's on Deep Space Nine. Nobody's at Utopia Planitia to fix it.
It's true.
Don't you like the aesthetic of the bridge though, in comparison to having Geordi's working, doing some engineering BS, and he has his back to the view screen, right? Like you can't see anything. Well,
I do like the Defiant, and I like the bridge. My only nitpick is that like other than the pilot station, the other stations are more modular, and I guess that's fine, but I prefer
Do you like the captain's chair?
Yes.
It's much more like a lounge chair. They sit way back in it, and it's very big. You really notice it when Kira takes command, like not in this episode, obviously, but it's a huge chair.
Yeah,
she looks like a child sitting in it.
Yeah, she's a pretty skinny girl, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like I always thought the Defiant Bridge looked great. Like, and it held. Yeah. They never changed it really throughout the whole next 5 seasons that they would.
And when the ship gets hit very hard, no one's flying over stuff that's in the way, or if their head
in slow-mo.
Yeah. They just fall to the open space that's around the captain's chair.
Well, the helmsman dies in this episode, and nobody cares about it. He's a red shirt. Nobody cares about him. They just toss him aside, and he's like, "Bashir, get in there."
You should have went to the Nebula. Should have hopped in the shuttlecraft and been ignored.
Right. Well, this whole mission to the Gamma Quadrant, right? Because to find the founders,
kind of stupid.
It's a little weird. Okay, we got this cool warship, so we're gonna cloak, and then we're gonna find them, and then we're gonna tell them we have no hostile intentions.
That's right, and have no idea whether or not they can detect us, or whether or not they're gonna kill us once they do detect us.
And we're gonna bring Odo and Quark with us too.
Really just because.
Yeah.
Well, the Quark thing makes sense. I think the
Odo thing makes sense. It was just to make him feel better about the fact that
Odo was moping,
possibly with us in this possibly suicide mission.
Yeah, Kira invited him on behalf of the Bajoran government, but not really. And then
Odo is the only guy who should be left running the station. They have no character left to run the station.
Eddington.
Yeah,
Eddington?
Yeah, he's the guy there.
He's there. They literally left him in charge.
Right. Now, in this episode, since half of it is kind of, it didn't happen. Sometimes I'm like, Garrick was at the episode, but no, he really wasn't, because that wasn't Garrick.
Okay, that's the one thing I think of this episode is I usually hate it was all a dream, or it was all on the holodeck, or it didn't really happen. But this episode is so good that it's forgivable.
Yeah, it is.
Is it good because it's like this whole thing that it's a dream throws me off, because it's very obvious on the rewatch that this doesn't make any sense.
Because the Admiral, especially for me, the Starfleet Admiral is the one that gives it away the most for me. I'm like,
no, it's the fact that they're not. Cisco's not looking for Kira or Odo.
That too.
All,
yeah.
Right. There's a lack of urgency going around, and there's weird, and it's early, so you're like, oh yeah, and we made friends with the Dominion, and then
O'Brien and Dax save us miraculously out of nowhere. And, everything that happens is kind of just perfect. Kismet.
It's Inception.
The
way they pick up on scenes, it doesn't really start like it's in the middle of something. Cisco is eating, and he's daydreaming, and he's kind of lost where he was just before. They're at the bar, they're already at their table or anything. Right, already set up, and Quark immediately comes and sees them. It isn't like they walked over and sat down. Things just kind of happen, and they just
like when you really study it on the rewatch, you see how they're dream sequences, or they're sort of staged events. But we kind of skipped over the big reveal at the end of episode 1, because we're kind of talking about like kind of the events of episode 2, part 2. Right. And it's this reveal of like the founders, or like, well, we don't know quite till the very end of part 2 that they're the founders, but that Odo finds his people. We got Salome Jens in the role of the female changeling, which she will continue to play for the next 5 seasons and be this like kind of the big bad of the show in some ways. Maybe next to Ducat, like, rivaling that kind of level of malevolence.
Right. It also starts the whole chain narrative of, is Odo having sex with this changeling, and is Kira jealous?
Well, yeah, because they seem to have like a mother-son relationship in some ways, but it's also sexual and
mother and son.
It's sexual and kind of mother, what's an Oedipus kind of thing going on for sure.
Yeah, it's creepy and weird, but also you kind of feel you're happy for Odo that he's finding his people and he's turning into a hawk or whatever, and he feels the wings, the wind under his wings, and he doesn't like being rocks that much, but
watching him do that motion though as a human was amazing. Like just sort of flutter around on his toes, and I enjoyed that a lot. I thought that was hilarious.
What did you think of, like, why is he embarrassed to turn into his liquid? Like we have the scene with Quark where he's like, I don't want you gawking at me. And he gets like probably the angriest we ever see Odo is in that scene.
It makes him different. It's something only he does. He's the only one like this. He's the only member of his species up until this point that he knows of. And so it's just he's embarrassed,
and he has a past of being made to change,
for
others' amusement, like for the Cardassians and whatnot. Right. So he doesn't like to do it.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. Quark tried just annoyed him, and him barking at Quark was amazing.
And we also get the thing with Odo where he's got this longing for this random nebula.
The Omarian Nebula.
He's really got to go there.
The Karama guy.
He's gonna. Okay, that scene, guys. By the way, when Kira goes down to talk to Odo in his quarters or whatever, and he's like, "Save your breath," and she sits down, and it's a great scene. All these scenes actually in this first episode are like fantastic. But this scene, when the explosion happens, and like I was like, "This is really well done." I was like, "This is like something like Battlestar Galactica will do later on." Which is funny because the teleplay of the first part was by Ronald D. Moore.
He may have borrowed from himself a little bit here. Well, yeah, like just his whole thing. He's like, save your breath. Just give me a shuttle and let me go to the Omarian Nebula. She's like, we're in the middle of the Dominion. We're under cloak. What are you talking about?
Where are you going to go? Yeah.
Where are you going to go? And she's like, I get this is important to you, but like not this second. And and then they get attacked. And then... Okay, I don't really understand exactly what happened here, because like, did Kira ever go into the mind control world?
No,
right? So they were really fighting those Jem'Hadar, right? Like Odo and Kira before they escaped.
I guess so. Yes. Yeah. That would be because when does, I guess it's just when we see Sisko and Bashir in the shuttle, everything from then on, basically, right, is the fake stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm not. That's what I'm trying to understand is when all of them respectively sort of end up in the dream world, and I guess it like Dax and O'Brien are the first two they capture, right?
Right. So they're in the dream world. We don't, after we see them captured on the planet or whatever, everything when they open the hatch to find Bashir and Sisko, that's all
right. And they only find those officers in there, right? Like the 7 of them,
something like that. Yeah.
Okay, because the Defiant probably left with a complement of 50, I would imagine.
They never show engineering though. That's one thing that bugs me about the Defiant is they barely show engineering, and they barely show like how many people are really on this ship. They do it a bit. They definitely...
Well, usually like a crew of about, like the ship typically holds a crew of 80, like that kind of that the Defiant, right? So even if they don't have all the decks inhabited, let's say they have even half of that, There's still like 40 people who went on this mission, maybe.
I don't think that
so
many people.
Are they all dead? The rest of them?
No, I don't think there's 40 people.
Yeah, I think it's more like 25.
They went into the Gamma Quadrant with only 25 people.
I think so.
The ship is like basically runs from the bridge.
I think they said
engineering is being run from the bridge.
They said most of the decks were inhabitable. So who's on the decks, Dave?
How can they fly a ship without a crew?
They do have the crew. Majority of them is on the bridge.
The Defiant can be totally run from the bridge. They do say this in the series.
Then why do they need... Okay, then why does Odo have to share a room with Quark?
Because that was the only...
Most of the decks are uninhabitable.
Yeah.
They also say that in the series.
They also
Convenience, Kevin.
Okay, who's Odo going to stay with? Kira? Kira's with Dax.
They can't find separate rooms. Like, really?
No,
like,
there's not
we think that they made
Odo. Why wouldn't Odo stay with his best friend? Like, come on.
I guess.
Yeah, he loves Quark. He even said so at the end of the last episode, Dave. He goes, you'd miss him too. You know? And I love Bashir in the episode, just like he's like, somebody's got to watch Quark, and might as well be you. You know, like just stuff like that. Bashir's really good in this episode, and it's fine. I think he kind of had his way. I think he had some words with the writers after season 2. He was like, "You need to make me a little bit more cool. This is getting a little out of hand." You know?
Yeah, let me destroy that Jem'Hadar ship.
On the street.
Yeah. Don't worry, Alex. What they call him, Sid, right? They call him. Don't worry, Sid. You're going to be the one who destroys the first Jem'Hadar ship.
Yeah. So I definitely think the it's not a coincidence that like the random pilot dies. But sure, you get in there. There's literally nobody else around.
Do you like when they're having these hand-to-hand fights with the Jem'Hadar and they always have their fists, right? And they go, bah, bah.
Okay. That was the other thing I noticed in this episode that was not in the last episode is that the Jem'Hadar had the Ketracel white.
Yeah, they have that now. They didn't have that in their debut. You're saying, okay?
No.
Well, no,
they're hanging out at Quark's for no reason outside of just cause mischief.
Yeah, why were they at Quark's? Was that part of this? That was part of the Dream World.
That's part of the Dream World, yeah.
Right. That's another clue. It's like, what are the Jem'Hadar hanging out on the station for? Like, there was a bunch
and they
of...
like gambling.
And
Quark tells them they like Dabo.
Yeah, they definitely don't like Dabo, and they don't like anything but killing and victory. They don't like food. They don't like sleep. They just
might be in the holodecks trying to fight Klingons in past history.
Okay, but I have questions, Jeff. The Omarian Nebula,
right,
where Odo and Kira go,
right.
How can there be a planet without a solar system?
I thought the same thing. M-class planet just floating in a nebula. It's like, we're protected.
So where does their heat come from?
Maybe that's what it is. It's just how is it an M-class planet? First of all, that makes no sense.
A rogue planet. That's like I was like, I'm not an astrophysicist, but this intrigued me.
Doesn't an M-class planet like have to orbit a sun and have to have a certain like nitrogen to oxygen?
Well, it has to have like an atmosphere, and it has to have a certain medium temperature, and there's a bunch of criteria. But like I was just like, okay, but they sent these infants out, the infant changelings we find out about, right? Like to gather information. Odo wasn't supposed to come back for 300 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he also finds out he's going to live at least for another 300 years, which I think he's kind of excited about. But cause I don't know if he knows how long he's going to live.
But not if Bashir shoots him like he did in the crossover where he turns into a big pile of goo.
Right. Like the Dominion are playing the founders, the changelings, they're playing the long game here. Like they're because they're xenophobic and they're isolationists, but they also sent their young out without any training or guidance to become sort of fact-finding.
Which is a weird choice. You hate and are afraid, but you send your children out instead.
Right, because and the word changeling, which was apparently some kind of a slang term, but they took it back and they made it their own, and now they use it.
They're taking it back.
They're taking it back.
I'm taking it back.
Okay,
yeah,
I guess. I think I hate the founders in some way. I just think they're so lame. Like Odo, like literally lays that out to her at the end of the episode, and I'm like, yeah, Odo's right. Like where he's like, You guys don't understand like the uniqueness of going out and having lived experiences and being part of this one collective is kind of, not a fulfilled life is kind of what, like Odo's right. And this is like the crux of the whole thing, that their ideology just kind of consumes them, that the Great Link is everything and you don't understand and we have everything figured out. And they're very smug, the Dominion.
And the thing I regret is that, like, ultimately, like, Odo does go home and he joins the Dominion, or he joins the Founders, really, not the Dominion, but you could presume that he would get involved in the Dominion as well itself, like as the state of it, and like what that meant kind of after Deep Space Nine. That was kind of the unfortunate thing, that we didn't really get to see what the post-war Dominion with Odo coming home would have been like, because he brought this whole new perspective about diversity and sort of being out there with all these different viewpoints and cultures and things, and what he learned from the Bajorans and the Cardassians and the Federation, of course. So it's kind of cool. It's like Odo does have a really cool, compelling story, and I think this is a big, huge chapter in that. Obviously, and weaving it in with the whole war angle in the show was just super smart.
It was, because I don't think they were going to be able to kind of continue Odo's character without it. Like, I think he would have, I think, kind of fizzled out of the show if they didn't have his origin figured out in a compelling way. And it might have been part of why season 1 and 2 are the way they are. Maybe they didn't have certain characters fully figured out, and then you can really tell, like, just in this episode, how much prep and grunt work they put into season 3.
Mm-hmm.
What you guys want to talk about the second episode a little bit more?
Yeah, Kira's talking to trees.
First of all, the second episode is directed by Jonathan Frakes, and it's painfully obvious. There are so many scenes with Kira and Odo on the planet that just remind me of TNG episodes, and just remind, just the way. And it's not that that's bad. The show kind of feels different for me in the second half. Do you guys agree?
The second part is very different.
It is.
I can see what you're talking about, because of the dream sequence does play a role in it, where everything just kind of seems a little bit off.
I don't think I was more just talking about like the Kira Odo scenes. It reminded me like of episodes of Riker going down to a planet, and just some of like the back and forth, just the way the dialogue ran, just the way it was shot. I was
so relaxed though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, you're on this planet, you're the only humanoid solid, and she's just kind of chilling.
Yeah.
I'll figure out things. Don't worry.
She's like so awkward. She's like, I didn't really expect to be here for this family reunion, but this is so exciting for you guys.
and she's like, this is great.
I can tell you don't really like me, so I kind of want to get out of here anyway.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can I send a message? Actually, no. Well, no. Okay, I'm gonna go do that anyway.
I'm gonna go do that like secret Bajoran style. Okay.
It's okay. It's secret Bajoran style. Nobody will know. It's totally on the down low. Odo's like,
don't worry, Odo. Your new mom girlfriend thing.
Odo's like, I don't care. I'm trying to learn to be a vulture here. Get out of here.
I'm going to be a rock, Reese.
Yeah,
but I don't know how to be a rock.
I might need some privacy for this. That's the only way to become a rock. The little scene where she says, "We value our isolation." Right, and then Odo goes, "Oh yes, of course." And then Kira's like, "What the fuck?" That all happens within like a second of each other, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, because he's linking with the female changeling quite a bit. She never gets a name throughout the whole show.
Well, and Odo's really his name isn't. He doesn't have a name really.
He has a name though.
But he was named, by like that scientist Bajoran guy, right? And doesn't Odo mean like unknown in Bajoran?
Yes, he took it back.
Right.
Just like the changeling thing. He made it his own.
He owed it.
He owed, well, sort of, like it's like just they do use pronouns, so they do have. It seems like they have he's and she's among the changelings.
Okay. Or were they just saying that to help for the solid who might not understand?
Maybe they are using a spoken language they wouldn't use typically. Like it's not necessary.
If they can turn, I mean, all right. First of all, if they can have infants, there has to be some sort of right, male or female. They're reproducing in some way.
Well, we don't know that that's how their biology works. Like we know that they're genetic, like engineers, that they're masters of genetic engineering. That they put this code into Odo's genetics that he would want to go back to the Omarion Nebula one day when he saw it on the view screen. So,
but how did they create Odo?
Well, it kind of makes me wonder about the changelings, and are they an evolved race, or are they a genetically like engineered race on some level, or people who experimented with different genetic engineering techniques? It's kind of like, who knows what their origin is. I think that's if you want to kind of look back at history and go back into different eras of Star Trek universe, that's kind of an interesting thing to look at, is sort of how the Dominion formed and how their society kind of started.
Speaking of the Dominion, Jaemeel or Kevin, Borath, what did you guys think of Weyoun Light?
He wasn't interesting. He's when you know that Weyoun's coming, you can't.
Yeah.
This guy's nobody.
He's like like the monkeys to the Beatles. Like it's just it's just not quite.
He's a no-name brand.
He's angry. He's not witty. He's just blah.
Most of the Vorta are kind of he is among the Vortas, but there is another Vorta. I think her name is not Eris. Eris was the first Vorta who was in the finale of season.
You're talking about the one with when they get the ship.
Yeah, when the ship's like upside down and they're trying to right. She's amazing in that episode.
Yes.
Right. And that episode is so good. So there, like, aside from Jeffrey Combs as Weyoun, I think she's like the second best Vorta. And then it's like, maybe the Iggy Pop Vorta is good.
This guy is like, Jeffrey Combs could have played this role just the same. Like he was basically doing a prototype for Weyoun. That's what I thought when I was watching it. I'm like, oh, this is what Weyoun will be.
Yeah. I also liked is it Kevon? The one that the I Hate Ferengis, where they have to reanimate him.
Yeah,
prisoner.
Well, he's good too. He the one the guy who defects, right? Because he's dying.
Yeah.
And all that guy. He's in that Iggy Pop episode. Iggy Pop Vorta was like, no, not later now, or whatever. We gotta do that. And I want to be the Iggy Pop Vorta.
Lock it in for radio theater.
Jaemeel, okay. What about Garak in this episode? Do you like the scene when Bashir first comes back? He kind of goes, business keeping you busy. He goes, oh, the tailoring business or the spy business? And right there, immediately, you should be going, that's not, Garak wouldn't say that, but it's still funny.
Okay. The reason why I believe that people were still recognizable as their characters, even though it was just an illusion, was the people in the framework, I'm using that term, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. rep, they also help create the reality and kind of round out like characters.
They populated the projections.
Yeah, so Garak, like Bashir for sure, would think that he's talking about his garment business, but he probably also means being a spy, and it being a projection of Bashir.
Yeah.
The Bashir Garak said that, as opposed to the real Garak would never say something that forthcoming in terms of information.
Yeah, even if he was joking, like Garak would still keep it a little bit tighter to the vest.
His plan to get away from the Jem'Hadar is totally something that Bashir would cook up. He's like, he would totally betray us, but then deep down, I know Garak would do the right thing and he would be with us.
And this is the part where I pretend to be their friend and I shoot you
very slowly as I turn around. The other one should get fired.
That's interesting, Jaemeel, because then he talks to Cisco, and in their conversation, he says, "Oh, I didn't know we thought so much alike."
Yeah, and it's kind of the start of Pale Moonlight. Their relationship starts kind of right there, and it's not even Garrick, which is amazing. But Cisco probably won't remember it. He's like, Garrick, I could use that.
Garrick.
How insightful Jake was in their conversation.
Are you saying the Dominion committed Inception against themselves?
I think so. I think they. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, they might not understand the implications of that situation, but the characters might, right? Because they're just seeing what like a top level of the scenario, not totally understanding the context. At first, when this whole situation was occurring, I was like, well, obviously they had spies on Deep Space Nine. They can gather up information. Garrick is well known as being a tailor / like hand of the Obsidian Order, but like on the down low. And, Quark as a character is pretty obvious, and Starfleet regulations is something that they can probably easily grab a hold of, and everyone knows how distrusting the Romulans are, right? So a lot of these scenarios could have been pre-built, but the insights that we recognize and we would figure that the characters would recognize, that's something that I don't think, unless they're extremely strong telepaths, not really going to be something that they can create. And that's why I feel
that's the whole thing with the changeling. Can't they? They can if they can turn into anything, they can turn into like a telepath. They can turn into a betazoid, right? Like,
I don't think that's necessarily the case. They can simulate physical properties, but not necessarily mental ones. When they give themselves like the biggest brain in the world, and like I can outthink everything. I know you were going to do that.
Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about this as the changeling stuff continues. But I always thought with the changelings that if they turn into Chief O'Brien, then they know everything Chief O'Brien knows because they've turned into him.
Changeling O'Brien is my favorite O'Brien.
The one on the planet, the one that comes at the fountain. Yeah. But that's the whole thing, because just assuming something's form is one thing, and because you can also be scanned, but it's also like you would also have the brain waves of those people, and you would have their knowledge in theory. But I don't know how.
Would you?
I think so.
I don't think so.
I don't know. We should figure this out.
That's some high level mimicry to be able to do that.
Well, how else could you have a conversation with somebody? How did the fake Bashir changeling, get by?
When does fake Bashir changeling come? Is he
when the uniform switch? It happens just before when the uniform switch, because when they pick up the real Bashir in prison, he's got the old uniform on, but Worf's got the new one on. So
Dave talk.
Dave watch. You want to know about uniforms and when people were abducted by changelings and put into prisons and nefarious plots were afoot? I can tell you about it. Dave talk.
Even if you don't want to hear it, I can tell you about it.
Yeah, you don't want to know about uniforms? We got you covered.
You might want to pay attention because there's some interesting things.
I don't know. Yeah, this episode's good. I like it. I don't know.
I don't like the second half. The second half is I'm down on.
I think the first half's way better. The second half, I don't like the first half of the second half. I think it finishes pretty strong though.
Does it?
I think the whole dream world stuff. I like the stuff with Odo and Kira is good, but I think this whole ruse of them being in the dream and everything else. I think
I like it because it's a great rewatch because. We just created a new theory that Jaemeel, gave us the whole projection theory of the inception of, that Garrick wouldn't say that. That's Bashir thinking that's what Garrick would say, or that's Cisco thinking what, and then everything that was going on, I guess some of it was programmed by the Dominion, but some of it kind of had to not be in some way because they're interacting, right?
Right. It has to be adapting to their decisions they're making in the simulation, right? So like when when O'Brien gets attacked by that Jebediah. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Bashir, like I was like, this can't be real because Bashir got in a fight.
How do we all feel? How do we all feel about all of these senior officers going ahead and betraying the Federation?
Yeah, like especially the Admiral,
Don't tell anyone.
Can we talk about the scene where Sisko barges in and yells at the Admiral with like the Wayun light standing right there?
I want to know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, that scene. It's awesome. It's like the best full Hawk Sisko we've gotten yet, and he just is chewing the scenery. He's pissed off. He's yelling at people. He's saying, well, this is bullshit. What about Bajor? What about the wormhole? They just allowing this is crap. He's just giving it to her. And then she's like, are you done? And then she explains this treaty, and then he goes off, and then he gets even more.
Yeah, because they brought back, well, it's not the real Admiral Nechayev or whatever, but it's, she is the meanest of all the admirals. She is the real housewife of, insert city name here. The Real House of San Francisco, and she is going to tell you how she is the meanest boss ever. But yeah, like I think Sisko gives this whole speech about Odo. He doesn't follow the chain of command, and he's not a team player. And so Sisko is having to now deal with a superior officer here who's kind of ruining his entire world, this place he calls home, and he's having to wrestle with that. Like Dax has been reassigned, and what was the other issue?
They were leaving the station, Dave. They were like,
yeah. We're giving the station to the Dominion and Bajor. They'll be fine.
Yeah, and then we find out. Yeah, projections. And Sisko's like, we're not having that. Garrick's got a plan. We'll shoot some people. We'll get we'll blow some photon torpedoes into the wormhole. And Bob's your uncle. That'll be it. Which I always thought Sisko, the people who guard the wormhole, can't you just have a convo with the prophets, be like, hey, don't let the Dominion, anytime they come in the wormhole, you just send them right back to the Gamma Quadrant. Wouldn't that have been easier?
They do that eventually.
They do that when there's no other things left. Yes.
That's right. That's when enough suspense has been built and you think that the station and everybody's gonna die, prophets.
Well, what I do find amazing about the show, and sometimes the fact, like Dax is the science officer, okay, and they've discovered these new alien life forms living in the wormhole who are non-corporeal, and sure, it's maybe a little difficult to talk to them, but they spend no time studying them. They spend no time doing scientific research on the wormhole.
No, Keiko does more research on them than anybody else.
But you know who we need to study? Like the Baku in friggin' Insurrection or something.
No, we didn't need to do.
We didn't need to, but like that. I just think it's odd. Yeah, they really like this whole thing about the gods in the wormhole. They only go to that plot when they think
you can handle it.
Dax seems totally uninterested in the prophet.
She does the least amount of science work of any science officer.
Yeah, like Spock. Spock does more.
Way more.
Yeah, way more. Especially Spock. Wait, who's the science officer on the next gen?
Oh, Data.
Yep.
Oh, he's the science officer?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he does a lot of work. Yeah, Dax is a slacker. I agree. She's kind of like...
And Harry Kim is a better science officer.
Well, Harry Kim doesn't do anything but work and... every now and then he gets and then he gets in a relationship. He dies, and then he'll get in some sort of relationship in one episode, and
some woman who's already dead.
Yeah, who's already dead, or he'll figure out some way where he'll crash or burn, and it'll never end happy.
But then we did the Voyager podcast.
Meanwhile, Dax is banging every alien on this that comes through the station.
We don't know if it's every alien.
Oh, it's a high number.
It's a few. More than Kira, for sure.
It's definitely more than Kira. Okay. Yeah. I mean, what more to have we said that we need? Do we need to talk any more about this episode? Have we hit everything?
Well,
we have the reveal. Should we talk about the Dominion reveal?
That they are the founders?
Yeah, that they are the founders, and Odo figures it out, and it's like, they find the door, and Kira's like, this is weird, this door being here, and Oda's like, door? We don't need a door, and then they go over.
They're like, why would shapeshifters need doors?
Yeah,
like that never occurred to me as something they wouldn't need.
Yeah, me neither.
they might need a door. I don't know. What do they just hang out in the puddle all day? Is that all they do?
Apparently, when they're not shapeshifting into rocks and trees and whatever.
They have this whole contraption set up. Is that the Wayun and the Jem'Hadar's contraption, or is that the Founders?
Well, what's unfortunate is, like, in some ways, is we only get Salome Jens in this one changeling role, and like this one other changeling guy who talks, who says, "Don't be doing the link.
He's not ready.
He's not ready." And she's like, "Yeah, he is. He needs to remember for a minute." But
take it easy,
Yeah, like I guess as a people, how diverse they are or not, I guess, because Odo is so different than the rest of them. She seems different than the rest of the changelings, but we don't get to meet many individuals, I guess, right? Like there's a few along the way, but
I will say that D9 is one of the rare shows where they made a point of having a lot of female characters. More, I would say a lot more than most of the other Star Trek shows, just in roles of especially villains. They have Kai Wynn, they have the Founder, like they you don't really see that, I find, in where they have female villains. That's hard to do too.
Well, Star Trek, I think, using women in general, they've always been ahead of their time. Like when we do the original series, we look back on it and we go, ugh, like in sometimes, but for the most part, like it's really strong what they're presenting, and for the time, leaps and bounds ahead of anything.
Dave, we watched it once back then. That was it.
Back in 1966, Dave, we didn't know not to insult women. Wait, didn't you?
No, it was part of. It was part of the programming of the day.
Right. But you understand. Yeah. Like there are some things you kind of go, whatever. But yeah, like I think that you're right. Like Kai Wynn and this character, the female changeling, the Founder, sometimes she's referred to as, she's a great, right? But I think what Star Trek always did was just present equality. Like I never had to think about it, whether this was a man villain or a woman villain. It's a villain. And
I just think that like we have the Seska Romulan here to rule or whatever. We have Dax, we have Kira. I just mean like there's almost more women on this show than there are men, and I don't that I just think that's pretty good for D9.
Yeah, it's good. They use their characters well.
Yeah. Okay. Is it time for a little double F with Jeff?
Sure is.
I think so.
All right. Double F with Jeff. Double F with Jeff. We got a 47 reference. 47 alert. The Defiance registry number is NX74205. The first
47
number,
backwards.
It's a reverse 47. Yes.
It's a stretch. Okay.
This takes place in 2371.
You can tell by the com badges.
Tell by the com badges. That's a Dave talk. Okay. First appearance of Michael Eddington, the Canadian Wonder, who keeps a lucky loony.
He's got a lucky loony in storage. Didn't bring him with him into the Maquis, though. Didn't have time.
He's Kevin's favorite character. Okay. This is also the first appearance of the Wardroom. Do you guys remember that?
Well, yeah, okay. So that's what when he says, "Look, I brought the Defiant," and then the next scene is in this it's called the Wardroom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point because we didn't talk about that. That is another set, and they'll use that a ton. That becomes their conference room because we saw a couple times in the first two seasons they never had good meetings. Like
no, and they would often like crowd around ops. And
remember that one scene where they tried to have in Cisco's office and everybody was like lined up?
I think
they're all lined up.
I imagine Ira Stephen Bear just showed like the producers of the show, like, we can't keep doing this.
It just didn't make any sense. We have this massive space station. We can't have one room have like a table and chairs
into this little room.
Yeah.
Just build us a room. It's a square room. It's a rectangular room with the table and chairs and some windows.
Yeah, perfect. It's a fake will be used later on. This is the first of 12 DS9 episodes, the last being past tense part 2, that premiered without another Star Trek series on air. Star Trek Next Gen had ended, and Voyager had not yet begun. This is also the third of 14 episodes to premiere between the original airings of the finale of one series and the premiere of another.
Right.
That was also in the Dave talk, but I felt...
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
John Fleck, who played Orenthar, also played Tybeck in Next Gen, the Mind's Eye, a Cardassian overseer in The Homecoming, and Koval in Inter Arma Enum Silent Legis, one of those Latin names.
That's some great Latin there, Jeff.
I don't know how to say it. Do you know how to say it? An Abaddon in Alice. He is best known for playing Silic in 7 episodes of Enterprise. No, he's not. He's not best known for that.
He's not best known.
Nobody's best known for anything from Enterprise. Even Archer is best known for another show.
He's best known for Quantum.
Yeah.
Okay. The studio model of the Defiant was designed by James Martin and constructed by Tony Meininger. Meininger thought the initial design was a bit too chunky looking. An avid car buff, he took inspiration from Ferrari sports cars to streamline the model, giving it a sleeker appearance. Some of the schematic displays on the bridge set initially portrayed the original blocky silhouette of the ship. These were replaced in later episodes to reflect the final design.
I didn't notice those.
I would not have thought they designed it like a Ferrari.
Yeah, but like they were going to call the ship the Valiant originally, right? And but because Voyager was V, they told them they had to change it, and so they went with Defiant instead. But it doesn't have the same registry number as the Defiant from the original series
because it's a different type of ship.
Yeah, but the Enterprise D is a different kind of ship than the Enterprise A.
True.
So, like, I don't really know how this works.
But the Defiant's an experimental ship, isn't that why it's NX?
Yes. Yeah. So I don't really get it how they decide these registry numbers. They're all that's the one thing I can't. I figured out the uniforms. I can't figure out the registry numbers.
All right. Well, that's not a Dave topic. Okay. The search takes place 8 months after Rules of Acquisition and 2 months after the previous season's finale. So this is 2 months after the end of last season.
So for 2 months, there was nothing that happened worth noting.
Well, no. Sisko went to Earth. He went to a bunch of meetings. And
Jake ate some pudding.
And that was pretty much it. They left, and they were like, Earth kind of sucks now. We like the Cardassian space station better. And don't really want to be here anymore. See, was it grandfather? What's the grandfather's name?
Oh, I don't know, Mr. Sisko.
Mr. Sisko. Okay, they probably went and saw him, but that's never mentioned because they hadn't cast him yet as
Admiral Cartwright.
Brock Peters. Yeah.
Right now he's Admiral Cartwright. Okay. This is the first appearance of Romulans in DS9. Seska.
There's never been a Romulan on this show. I guess there hasn't been.
No.
Lots of Cardassians, lots of Bajorans, but no, the Romulans, and you know what, looked pretty good. First appearance of the new style of Starfleet comm badges, as Dave has told us many times. This is the first episode with Jonathan West as director of photography. He served as such for every episode of the series run, except for the ones he directed, starting from this episode.
Well, okay, so this would be interesting. So we have a new DP on this show after this point. Obviously, we have all these new sets, so there's nothing to compare. We can only compare like sets we've seen, like Ops and things like that. But
I thought the show was shot way better, than season 2. Like I just thought, like some of the way the show looked, and some of the scene, the new sets, and the way they had a couple of nice tracking shots, I thought were pretty good.
There were some shots tonight. There was one where is it Bashir and he's walking and talking with somebody. With Garrick, right? Yeah. It's the fake Garrick, but it's kind of a cool scene, and there's even a scene in the bar where you just get this feeling of perspective, like the because normally Quarks feel small
when O'Brien gets thrown across that part.
Yeah, in that part where Sorry.
So yeah. That was pretty great. Empire Magazine cited this whole two-parter, The Search, as the best episode of DS9 when they ranked the series number 47 on their list of the 50 greatest TV shows of all time. Really? They ranked this the best episode? I mean, it's a good episode, but
I think it's like the only thing it's good to put on a list because if you want to get into the Dominion story, it's as good of a place to start, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's a good point. The episode features the first on-screen appearance of the Karema. They were mentioned in Rules of Acquisition, but they were not seen at that time. The episode also establishes that Quark was obviously successful in opening trade negotiations with the Karema after being referred to them by both the Dosi, and it's just that Grand Naga Zek's plan to get in touch with a higher-ranking member of the Dominion by making demands which the Dosi couldn't fulfill was successful.
it's a good business strategy. That Nagus, he's got the lobes.
We know that Dream Quark, just dreams of a world where Cardassian, Bajoran, Human, Jimitar, they all just line up at his Dabo table.
So Quark doesn't go with them, right? He's like, I'm gonna go back after the caramel thing. He just goes back to the station, and
Is he not with them when they're doing the Dream World?
No.
No.
Oh. Well, how did he get out of there?
He leaves with the Karema. The guy from the
He's
Karema.
like, so he's saying that, like, I guess so even though the Dominion's in the picture and they blew up New Bajor and all this stuff, it seems like there is still some trade in the Gamma Quadrant to the Alpha Quadrant still taking place.
Right.
And
Well, the Ferengi aren't a member of the Federation. The beef is with the Federation.
is it specifically with the Federation, or is just anybody coming from the Alpha Quadrant?
Anybody uninvited, which at this time is the Federation.
Right. So I guess the Ferengi are okay because they never go to war with the Ferengi ultimately.
No.
Well, the Ferengi never get into the war.
No.
So
Right. Okay, so this is the first episode in which Sisko expresses a love for Bajor, and the first time he voices his refusal to allow it to fall under any circumstances. The theme of Sisko's love for the planet would become more and more important as time went by, and would be one of his character's primary motivating goals in the series' final few episodes.
yeah, I feel like they should have done a little bit more with that, but to set this up, but because I don't feel like he spent a lot of time on Bajor. His interactions with Bajorans are always limited because we talked about it. Like, he was like, I'm a Starfleet guy. I can't be involved. I gotta be
limited and antagonistic.
Yeah, I can't be meddling, right? But I am here to show the benevolent Federation. But yeah, this is a big shift here where he's like, no, I will never allow Bajor. I love it.
The line
I brought
must
my
be
African
drawn
art
here.
collection to Bajor.
Yeah, that means it's home. Jake said so.
Yeah.
Okay. Odo's reaction to Lieutenant Commander Eddington is almost identical to his reaction to Lieutenant Primin in The Passenger. On both occasions, he tells Sisko that he will be handing in his resignation.
Constable Odo.
He
has it already typed up already.
Yeah.
Why should he be worried? He's like just another idiot Starfleet officer.
Yeah, some bald guy wearing yellow shoulders comes in every couple seasons and tries to take Odo's job.
Hello, Odo. I'll end up being incompetent, and we'll prove you're right.
That's why Worf had to change to the red shoulders. Okay, so Armin Shimmerman, guys, hated the scene where Sisko makes Quark kiss the scepter of the Grand Nagus.
Well,
it would have been a better scene if they had been able to actually get the Nagus, like, for a cameo. But I mean, he was probably doing Toy Story at the time, and he didn't want to do the makeup and for a scene.
Yeah.
But I think that would have been better than the scepter.
Yeah. Like I can see what Armin Shimmerman's coming from.
I thought he was going to give him the scepter, not make him kiss it. But anyway, according to Ronald D. Moore, the character of Michael Eddington was initially conceived of merely to fill in when Cole Meany was inevitably away doing a film. But over the course of the season, the writers decided to expand the character and even went so far as to introduce the mystery of his true affiliation. Kevin doesn't care. Kevin's a hater on
do you know why I hate him so much?
Why?
Is because the two of them have a great rivalry, and they're great. He brings out all these great performances in Avery Brooks, but he just sucks. He's so annoying to even look at.
Yeah.
Like
he's very smug. He's like the Dominion.
Yeah.
He's very smug, and that, I guess that's what gets Avery Brooks going. I guess that's what gets him mad. He doesn't like smugness. Okay. Odo's slightly altered makeup and uniform debuts at the request of Rene Auberjonois. He liked the way his mirror Odo looked in the crossover episode, guys, and he lobbied the producers to keep this design, which remained for the rest of the series. So the mirror universe again coming through.
It looks way like the belt at this point is a little bit too much in this uniform, but the collar is so much better on Odo's uniform. When he's got that low cut collar, I don't know what the hell they were going for with that. Like, if you want to make him look like a police officer, give him the high up collar. You know, you're gonna call him a constable? Give him the high up collar. What are you doing?
Should have gave him like a stick too. A black stick, not a nightstick, but like a club, like it.
Yeah, like a billy club. Hey, hello, governor.
Okay, and so after deciding not to make Torul a recurring character, the producers also decided to use the cloaking device beyond this episode. Indeed, they actually planned to mention early in the season that the cloak had been returned to the Romulans, so certain were they that it wouldn't be used again. That they were informed production designer Herman F. Zimmerman and director of photography Jonathan West, and told them that they didn't need to design an elaborate lighting rig because the dimming effect seen when the ship is under cloak would only ever be seen once. Wow, that is like a goddamn long sentence. As such, Zimmerman's set design didn't allow room for West to construct a rig which would contain the setup necessary for both normal lighting and cloaked lighting. Instead, West had his crew simply manually change the lights for the scene under the cloak. Of course, only a few episodes later in the Defiant, the cloak was once again employed, and many times after that. But the set and the lighting ring were never redesigned. So every time the ship went under cloak, Wes had to have his crew manually change all of the lights, something he got quite annoyed about.
Well, they can rebuild the set to at some point or readjust it.
No,
there wasn't enough time, Dave. They only had 4 more years.
Yeah,
they never
couldn't solve for this.
They never thought they were going to use it again. They were like,
well, I get it. They didn't know that the first time they did it, but like, I just understand. Yeah, that's. I guess they couldn't retrofit it after they had built certain parts of it.
Kevin, very presidential. 4 years. What did they fix it? No, they had 4 years. Nah, it's part of the re-election campaign. If they did a season, another season, it's like we'll fix the rig for sure.
Okay, and so we got a few. That was the end of the first episode, and then we only have a few for the second episode here. Okay, the monolith that is seen several times in the background of the garden of the Shapeshifter's planet is almost identical to the monolith which appears in the alternate as a relic of Odo's people. So
that's an intentional thing?
Yeah, it seemed to be. Natalia Nogulich plays Admiral Alina Nechaevich. No, how do you say her name? Nechaev? Nechaev. For the final time, this character had appeared intermittently on the series on The Next Generation. This is her final appearance, swan song.
But it's not the real her.
But it's a different actress?
No, she's the dream version, isn't it?
Oh, but it's not really. It's
not really Admiral Nechaev.
But she still showed up and earned a paycheck. So
yeah, she got.
The line "No changeling ever harmed another" would return in season 3 episode Heart of Stone, and The Die is Cast, and The Adversary, and the season 4 finale Broken Link. This is despite the fact that Odo is frequently threatened by both the founders themselves as well as their agents.
Yeah, he was actually we saw him fighting a Jem'Hadar in this at the end of the first parter, right?
Yeah, so maybe,
how come the Jem'Hadar is not programmed not to fight Odo?
Yeah, that's a good point. Salome Jens, the female changeling, previously appeared as the ancient humanoid in The Next Generation, The Chase. I don't know.
Right. Remember when they say the Klingons and the Romulans and everybody, all the humanoids are related based on on that, which does there have been some theories out there that that the changelings are related to those people or somehow are descended from those people.
Okay. When Odo says he has been referred to as a changeling on occasion, he could be referring to the episode Vortex, our favorite episode, in which Croden calls him a changeling, and in Shadowplay, in which Taya does so as well.
Right, when he turned into that top for what's her name for the girl, remember that the holographic girl.
Okay, so listen to this. Originally, the Vorta were written to be like, were written to be the godlike founders of the Dominion. This was changed, though, and the search to make the changelings into the founders. This explains why Eris in the early episode never acknowledged Odo as a founder. The Vorta founder concept is indicated by her telekinetic powers in the same episode. The writers regretted and deliberately forgot about that, in quotation marks, that last part for the rest of the series to make the Vorta significantly weaker than the changelings.
Yeah, like I think it was a good choice. Obviously, we all appreciate the fact that they gave the changelings this founder role, and the Vorta were more of these middlemen guys, and like it's better. But yeah, but that wasn't the plan, I guess.
Right.
Earlier in 1994.
The abrupt realization that the Bajoran wormhole has not been destroyed and that none of the events Sisko and the others experienced surely happened is an example of Deus Ex Machina style ending. However, rather than this being an avenue by which to create a quick resolution, the writers have claimed that the very point of this episode is to be found in its "it was all a dream" ending.
Well, it's all a dream, but it's like they barely got out with their lives, and there's not much to be happy about.
No.
Since much got the Defiant.
Yes. Since much of this episode is psychological projections, this is one of very few episodes not to feature any scenes on the real Deep Space Nine. It is also one of the only two episodes, the other being Children of Time, to be set entirely in the Gamma Quadrant. Bam! That's a fun fact. The focus continually splits between reality, Kira and Odo on the Founder's homeworld, and the psychological projections created in the experiment being conducted on Sisko and the others. This is masked by the normal formula of having A and B stories. Only in the last minutes is the psychological experiment revealed. In the same vein as The Next Generation, due to the plot being a simulation and not real, no exteriors of Deep Space Nine are shown except when the story moves into space and after the simulation ends. And that is it for Double F with Jeff. Thank you. Thank you for the claps.
All right.
Okay, let's go into ratings.
Read it up.
Okay, so let's start with Jaemeel. The Search, Part 1.
I'm gonna give it an 8.
You want to give me your Part 2?
Yep, definitely. Part 2 is an 8.5.
8.5. Okay, over to Kevin.
Oh, I'm backwards from that. I think the first part is a 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd give the second part a 7.
Oh, 8.5.
And Ashley was, she gave 8.9. She texted this in, by the way. An 8.9 for Part 1 and a 9.0 for Part 2.
Yeah, same wavelength.
Yeah. I'll go next, Jeff. I let you go last. I'm going to give Part 1 an 8.5. The second part, I think, is maybe a 7.5.
Not same wavelength.
Jeff.
I go 9 for the first part. And I go 8 for the second part.
Okay, so that gives, and the IMDb ratings are interesting. Part 1's an 8.4, and in Part 2 is an 8.3. So we're much higher on this second episode. On the first episode. Part 1, we're giving it an 8.72 collectively, and an 8.0 even to Part 2. So very strong, well above the average for this show. And if we compare it to the first 2 episodes of season 2. which were the Homecoming and the Circle,
Oh,
which we collectively gave a 4.7 and a 4.2.
the Bajoran trilogy, as it's known.
The Bajoran trilogy, which we gave an average of 4.42.
That was generous. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Compared, so like, you know, this is you could call this progress. Like, they are definitely, things are on an upward trajectory from here. The quality is much better. So so very good. And Jeff, do you know the name of the next episode we're going to be doing?
It's House of Quark.
Oh,
House of Quark's next. Oh, okay.
Yeah, hits keep coming.
Hits keep coming. So yeah, Quark's like, I'm getting my own way out of the Gamma Quadrant, and I'm heading all the way to the Beta Quadrant, to the Klingon homeworld.
she's like, I don't care. I don't care about the Dominion. I don't care about the wormhole. I'm a science officer, but you know what? I care more about Klingon stuff. So I'm gonna go do that. That's basically Jadzia in a nutshell.
Yeah, Cisco doesn't seem to be too mad that she murdered the albino, or she ended in the.
She's like, you know what? I don't really care. You know, I just science, whatever. I don't need to do that.
How could Cisco be mad? In his projected, I guess, fantasy, he betrays the entire Federation.
Yeah.
Staying on the projection theory that I had, Jadzia's projection is that she's eventually going to be moved off the station.
Maybe that's a fear, you know, like maybe that's a fear she has, right? And
because
she didn't want to be on the Lexington.
She has been, like, from the previous episode where she was talking about the Odyssey and how they want her on the ship, to previous attempts of losing her losing the Trill symbiont.
The symbiote, yeah.
Right.
Maybe she's a fear of being separated from things, whether it be her family or from herself or her whole self.
Might have been that time that guy John Glover showed up and stole her symbiote. You know, could have given her some issues.
What did we learn about projection O'Brien?
Jim Hadar kicking his butt in the kid.
Yeah.
Wait, he wasn't real O'Brien?
Suffers in every situation. He suffers.
He was real O'Brien.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he suffers. He's gonna get. I love how he gets thrown.
Get his ass kicked.
Of all people that gets thrown, like my favorite part about that scene is that the Jem'Hadar, for no reason, just picks O'Brien and not Bashir. You'd think it would be Bashir. He's usually the one who's annoying, but no, he picks O'Brien because O'Brien must suffer. And
O'Brien knows that. That's why he's the one that gets picked.
That's why he's the one, yeah. And Bashir's the one who has to try to help him and act tough, but isn't really tough at all. Yeah.
What a laugh!
What a laugh!
Yeah, here I do have.
We've got a lot to learn.
We've got a lot to learn, Mr. Jem'Hadar. And then Eddington's like, no problem here. Why don't you F off? PFO.
Everything's ready.
Yeah, Eddington sucks. I mean, especially in this episode. I mean, he's not real Eddington though. So
I think he's a close enough approximation from the.
Yeah, real Eddington probably would have not cared at all either.
Yeah, I don't think Eddington, the real Eddington would have done much better.
Probably not.
Javert.
Is that it for this week here, or do we want to talk about what's coming up on our sister channels, or
our family of networks and podcasts?
Yes, our family of network and
all
podcasts.
Kinds of things, so much that we can't even get all the promotional artwork done in time. But
get Disney Plus, man.
Forget Disney Plus. We got all kinds of things. First of all, I want to shout out the fact that I recently guested on Dylan Gonzalez's podcast, Defenders of the Cake. So if you haven't heard that podcast, go check out that interview over there.
What's the episode called?
It's a Canadian reference. Sorry, do you know? Because I can't remember right now.
I can't remember, but it was a Canadian reference. A Canadian Star Trek reference.
It was.
Something
beam me up, Scotty A, or something like that.
I gotta talk to him about his titles.
Live Long and Prosper A. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And so because Star Trek and Canada. And so like Eddington, all comes full circle. So check out Defenders of the Cake. Also on Live Long and Podcast, we do Tuesdays Deep Space Nine, obviously. Wednesdays original series. As we're finishing, we're in the back half of the episodes. We're crossing off episodes of the original series as we're going to watch all 79, not in order. So check that out. We'll be at 8:00 tomorrow, Wednesday night, to talk about the next episode over there, which I don't remember this exact moment. Does anyone else remember? No, we did that last week. Sorry, we're doing the Man Trap this week. I'm sorry. And we're doing the Man Trap tomorrow night. And then I think that's it. On Saturday night, we're going to be doing Star Trek Radio Theater. We're going to be doing Star Trek Voyager this week. I don't even have a cast together. I don't even have a poster together, but we know we're going to be going Saturday night to do Star Trek Voyager's Living Witness, which is the closest thing they have to a mirror episode. So we'll be coming out with that. And even though this will be coming after Trivial Debates, I do have this poster ready. This is Trivial Debates. We're coming after the Radio Theater on Saturday night. On Trivial Debates, our other channel, Jeff's going to be hosting on Sunday. He'll be with Jaemeel competing. We also have Chris Seymour, and we're going to have Jessica Chan fighting for the first time ever. So this is going to be a fun one. We got some great, interesting questions here, and also bringing Eamon Mater will be helping me on the back half, doing some fact checking and other services. So it's going to be good, exciting times. And Super Mater Brothers podcasting, not this week, but next week, we'll be coming back into production as Big Brother Canada will premiere on March 3rd, Wednesday and 4th. It will be a 2-night premiere, and then we'll be getting into a regular Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Do I have that right? For Big Brother Canada 9, as they'll be getting off. Jeff, are you getting excited for that?
No.
Okay. Can't wait for our podcast.
Excited about it?
We'll see. We'll see when it comes on.
We'll see that cast.
Yeah, the cast. We got to see the cast. Got to see. Will the game even finish? Last time we had a Big Brother Canada season, David didn't finish. So
it didn't finish because there was a pandemic. It wasn't their fault.
No, it was their
fault. That last year pandemic. Wow.
It was like a year ago. They ended that season because when all the stay-at-home lockdowns really kicked in last year, they had to shut it down because the production staff, the people in the house were already isolated, and Canada just has stricter regulations, I think, than maybe the
they should have figured out the loopholes, which I think they did this season, which is you can stay open if television productions now are able to stay open. So hairdressers now are like not hairdressers. They're like, you can film your demo reel while you do your hair.
Oh, if it's for entertainment purposes, you have exemptions.
That's how they're able to stay open. It's very very ingenious.
There you go. Beat the system.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's close the book on The Search.
Oh, for all of us here at Live Long and Podcast, we just want to say to you, keep it going, Live Long and Podcast, and keep it real. Keep.
It's the worst.